Hello, children. Good morning. I am very happy to meet you all through our school online class. Today, we are going to start with a new topic When the Trees Walked, a story written by Ruskin Bond. He is an award winning Indian author of more than 500 books, short stories, and novels. The Indian Council for Child Education has recognized his role in the growth of children's literature in India. He was awarded the Padma Shri in 1999 and the Padma Bhushan in 2014. The story is about how the author's grandfather was very much interested in planting a number of trees. He teaches many lessons to the author about why trees should be planted. Trees are a part of nature and they actually play a major role in the cycle of life on the earth. He tells the author a day would come where the trees would walk. Children, watch the interesting video presentation and enjoy the story.
Click the trees to know the words and their meaning. Fertile. Fertile. Able to produce a lot of plants or crops. Able to produce a lot of plants or crops. Abandoned. Abandoned. Left without care. Left without care. Vigorous. Vigorous. Healthy and strong. Healthy and strong. Protested. Protested. Opposed. Opposed. Nightmare. Nightmare. A frightening dream. A frightening dream. Interfering. Interfering. Stopping. Stopping. Rambling. Rambling. Wandering. Wandering. Sprout. Sprout. When seeds begin to grow small plants. When seeds begin to grow small plants. Spectacular. Spectacular. Eye-catching. Eye-catching. Beckoned. Beckoned. To signal someone with your hand to ask the person to come closer. To signal someone with your hand to ask the person to come closer.
Ruskin Bond is an award-winning Indian author of more than 500 books, short stories, essays and novels. He writes poetry and books for children as well as adults. He lives with his adopted family in Landur in Mussoorie, India. He was awarded the Padma Shri in 1999 and Padma Bhushan in 2014. One morning, while I was sitting beside grandfather on the veranda steps, I noticed the tendril of a creeping vine trailing nearby. As we sat there in the soft sunshine of a North Indian winter, I saw the tendril moving slowly towards grandfather. 20 minutes later, it had crossed the step and was touching his feet. There is probably a scientific explanation for the plant's behavior. Something to do with light and warmth, perhaps. But I like to think it moved across the steps simply because it wanted to be near grandfather. One always felt like drawing close to him. Sometimes, when I sat by myself beneath a tree, I would feel rather lonely. But as soon as grandfather joined me, the garden became a happy place. Grandfather had served many years in the Indian Forest Service, and it was natural that he should know trees and like them. On his retirement, he built a bungalow on the outskirts of Dehradun, planting trees all around: lime, mango, orange, and guava. Also, eucalyptus, jacaranda, and Persian lilacs. In the fertile Doon Valley, plants and trees grew tall and strong. There were other trees in the compound before the house was built, including an old peepal that had forced its way through the walls of an abandoned outhouse, knocking the bricks down with its vigorous growth. Peepal trees are great show offs. Even when there is no breeze, their broad chested, slim waisted leaves will spin like tops, determined to attract your attention and invite you into the shade. Grandmother had wanted the peepal tree cut down, but grandfather had said, "Let it be, we can always build another outhouse." Grandmother didn't mind trees, but she preferred growing flowers and was constantly ordering catalogs and seeds. Grandfather helped her out with the gardening, not because he was crazy about flower gardens, but because he liked watching butterflies. And there is only one way to attract butterflies, he said, and that is to grow flowers for them. Grandfather wasn't content with growing trees in our compound. During the rains, he would walk into the jungle beyond the riverbed, armed with cuttings and saplings which he could plant in the forest. But no one ever comes here, I had protested. The first time we did this, who is going to see them? See, we are not planting them simply to improve the view, replied grandfather. We are planting them for the forest and for the animals and birds who live here and need more food and shelter. Of course, men need trees too, he added, to keep the desert away. to attract rain, to prevent the banks of rivers from being washed away, for fruits and flowers, leaf and seed. Yes, for timber too. But men are cutting down trees without replacing them. And if we don't plant a few trees ourselves, a time will come when the world will be one great desert. The thought of a world without trees became a sort of nightmare to me, and I helped grandfather in his tree planting with greater enthusiasm. And while we went about our work, he taught me a poem by George Morris. Woodman, spare that tree, touch not a single bough. In youth it sheltered me, and I'll protect it now. The woodcutter is about to cut down a tree to which the poet has many fond memories attached. The poet asked the woodman to spare that tree that has been planted by his forefather. This tree was also the house of many wild birds. One day the trees will move again, said grandfather. They have been standing still for thousands of years, but there was a time when they could walk about like people. Then along came an interfering busybody who cast a spell over them, rooting them to one place. But they are always trying to move. See how they reach out with their arms. And some of them, like the banyan tree with its traveling aerial roots, manage to get quite far. We found an island, a small rocky island in a dry riverbed. It was one of those riverbeds so common in the foothills, which are completely dry in summer but flooded during the monsoon rains. A small mango tree was growing on the island. If a small tree can grow here, said grandfather, so can others. As soon as the rain set in, and while rivers could still be crossed, we set out with a number of tamarind, laburnum, and coral tree saplings and cuttings, and spend the day planting them on the island. The monsoon season was the time for rambling about. At every turn, there was something new to see. Out of the earth and rock and leafless boughs, the magic touch of the rains had brought life and greenness. You could see the broad-leaved vines growing. Plants sprang up in the most unlikely of places. A people would take root in the ceiling. A mango would sprout on the window sill. We did not like to remove them, but they had to go if the house was to be kept from falling down. If you want to live in a tree, that's all right by me, said grandmother crossly. But I like having a roof over my head, and I'm not going to have my roof brought down by the jungle. Then came the Second World War, and I was sent away to a boarding school. During the holidays, I went to live with my father in Delhi. Meanwhile, my grandparents sold the house and went to England. 2 or 3 years later, I too went to England and was away from India for several years. Some years later, I returned to Dehradun. After first visiting the old house, it hadn't changed much. I walked out of town towards the riverbed. It was February. As I looked across the dry watercourse, my eye was immediately caught by the spectacular red blooms of the coral blossom. In contrast with the dry riverbed, the island was a small green paradise. I noticed that some squirrels were living in them. And a quail, a crow peasant, challenged me with the mellow, "Who are you? Who are you?" But the trees seemed to know me. They whispered among themselves and beckoned me nearer. And looking around, I noticed that other small trees, wild plants, and grasses had sprung up under their protection. Yes, the trees we had planted long ago had multiplied. They were walking again. In one small corner of the world, grandfather's dreams had come true.